Alrighty, well, good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrew Doffney. I'm the Instruction and Outreach Librarian at the New Jersey State Library. It is my pleasure to welcome back Paul Cecala, who is a certified global career development facilitator, work search author, and founder of Cecala Career Consultants. Today, Paul is going to be talking about kind of what you can do to prepare kind of for your last career that's going to get you set up for retirement and everything beyond. So we appreciate Paul coming back. And since 1999, he has assisted over 3,000 job seekers, ranging from C-suite executives to college students. Paul specializes in creating job search project plans and is recognized for his empathetic listening skills. He currently facilitates job seeker networking groups for four different organizations and has helmed the adult professional education programs for two colleges, as well as the New Jersey Department of Labor One Stop Career Center. Paul has his bachelor's in psychology from Florida Institute of Technology and now has published two books and numerous articles on career coaching in a variety of publications. So again, welcome back, Paul. We're really excited to have you again.
Thank
And
you.
again, as normal, we'll jump in just after I go through some housekeeping items. We will be taking your questions at the end of Paul's presentation, but please feel free to submit them at any time using the Q&A or the chat features in the Zoom dashboard. There will be a survey available at the end of the webinar, so if you have time, we ask you please complete the survey. Both of us really and truly appreciate any and all feedback that you can give us. And if you just want more information about kind of what Paul's going to talk about today or anything related to career, you can visit sakalacareer.com, which Paul manages, and it's a fantastic resource and tool.
Thank you.
And then one last thing, just a brief overview of the Zoom dashboard. This is what your dashboard should look like if you're using a PC or a Mac. If you're using a mobile device, the dashboard may look a little bit different, but all of the features will still be there. In the bottom left, you can check your audio settings. So if you're using an external listening device, like a headset or earbuds, you can check to make sure it's connected properly there. At any point during the presentation, if you do have issues, there's a raise hand button here in the middle. You can click on that and that'll alert me. I will send you a message in Zoom and hopefully be able to resolve any problems that you are having. And then, as I mentioned, if you have questions, you can use the Q&A or the chat buttons to get in touch with us. We'll be happy to address them a little bit later on. So that is everything that I have. So Paul, you can take it away.
Beautiful. Let me get my screen set up here. Okay, you got the right space there. Do that. There we go.
All right, looks good.
And I just want to get the chat showing so I can see those questions when they pop up. And let me just see one other thing. Is the Q&A going to show up there? No. Okay. So thank you all. And excuse me, Andrew, thank you so much for that great introduction. I really appreciate it. It's great for me to be back to talk to y'all. I love doing these presentations. I love being able to speak with the folks that come to us through the state library. You know, we are really, really fortunate in New Jersey to have a state library system that is as robust and helpful as ours is. So it's wonderful way to have our tax dollars at work for us, and I appreciate this opportunity. We're going to talk about taking control of the end of your career and kind of preparing for that active retirement as well. And you know, Andrew alluded to the book that I wrote, Take Control of Your Job Search. It was an Amazon bestseller for about 3 weeks when it first came out, and it was listed as the number 2 best new read in its category by Book Authority. A lot of what we're talking about kind of stems from this same concept of how are we taking control of the different aspects of our career life. And so I use project planning as the primary way of looking at that. But let's dive right into today's topic. And here's, a perspective that I think we need to look at when it comes to retirement. It's not an end. And so many people look at retirement as it's the end, but it's not. It's just a new beginning. It's a new chapter in our life. It's a way for us to redefine who we are and what we want to be, right? And I love saying that it's what we want to be when we grow up, because as soon as we recognize or stop thinking of ourselves as continuing to grow up, we're really at the point where we're ready to die. You know, keeping that mindset, that perspective of I'm still growing up, I'm still becoming, is important to keeping life going. There's an interesting statistic from the staffing industry I'm sorry, from human resources, SHRM, that says within 3 years of retirement, about 50 to 60% of people die. And they die because they don't have a plan for how they're going to spend their retirement life. Right? So if you're thinking that when you retire, your goal is to go home and sit at the couch and watch TV all day, every day, the likelihood is that you will be dead within 3 years, statistically. But if you have a plan for your retirement of how you're going to remain active and engaged, well, you'll likely live until the current lifespan in the United States of about 80 years old. That fluctuates year to year, but right now it's about 80, 82 years old, depending on your sex. So we need to make this shift in our perspective, right? It's not about winding down, but it's just about changing the way we look at what we're doing going forward. Let's make it a strategic pivot so that we're doing things with purpose, with focus, and we're bridging in our last career, our last role or job to that retirement job or to that retirement activity. So that's kind of the way I'd like us to think about how we're going into retirement and what retirement is going to be. One of the reasons I do this job, for example, is because as long as I can talk, as long as I can think, and as long as I can use the technology, I can be doing this job until I die. Now, I probably won't. I've seen enough of my colleagues that are now into their 80s really starting to lose their connection to the current trends and the current activities in the industry. And so they're really not on their A game anymore. I hope that I'm going to go out on my A game, right? But I know I can do this for as long as I want. And I can do it for as much time or as little time as I want as I continue to age. And by the way, just disclosure, in October, I'm going to be 63 years old. So retirement is really very real for me because I need to be thinking about what's going to be happening next in my life and financially and all of the things that go with it. One of the things we're not going to talk about today really is the financial aspects of retirement. We're really going to just focus on how am I going to spend my time? What do I want to get out of my life from this last career that I'm in, this last job or two that I'm in, bridging over to into retirement? Okay, and please do ask your questions. Um, I can see the chat myself. I can't see the Q&A function, Andrew, so I'll depend on you to help me out with that piece. So let's start by taking stock of where we are, right? And that means really thinking about what do I want to be next? What do I want to become? What do I want to do going forward? Well, to figure that out, one thing to do is to identify what are all your current skills? What are the things that you know how to do and that you can continue to do into retirement? I'm falling into the trap of, arthritis, right? And so as much as I love to garden, it's not going to be something I can do a lot of going forward because I just can't bend down and get up and down out of from the garden that easily. Now, maybe I can find a way to build the gardens up so I can do it from a sitting or a standing position rather than having to get down into the ground. That may be a good way to, pivot strategically for that particular skill. What are the things that you're passionate about? What are the things that really interest you? Both from your career, but also from the other aspects of your life. You know, I'm very much someone who likes to teach, who likes to mentor, right? And so that's why this kind of a career is actually good for me. But how can I continue to do those things into retirement if that's something that's of interest to you? Right? What are the things that you are really passionate about? And how can we transition those into activities, possibly even jobs, for our early retirement? Right? And I hear from a lot of my clients, oh my God, almost every single one of them that are over 50 years old say, I really want a job that has value and meaning to society. What they're really saying is, I want to do something that has value and meaning to me, that makes me feel like I'm contributing and productive in society, right? So we need to list those things out. What are those personal values that you have? And how can those align with the attributes from your job that you love or all of your past jobs that you love, right? So you create these different lists, if you will, and kind of combine them and see where they overlap and figure out where are the things that are most helpful. Right? So I see this pop up here. Ooh, hey, I got the Q&A. Typo in the first line. Oh my God. Thank you for that. I will change that later on before I send these out, Antonella. I love you. I appreciate the shout out on that. So thank you. Interesting too. No, no, never mind. Okay, moving on. We need to then identify both the internal opportunities within our current organization that will help us to move towards all of those things that are valuable to us that we just listed, right? So, is there a different role or a different way of doing my current role in my current employment that will allow me to get the work that I want at the level that I want, the number of hours that I want, etc., um, so that I can stay where I'm at, right? Maybe I want extra work by going into some special projects beyond what I'm currently assigned. Or maybe I don't want to do what I'm currently doing and just stay with special projects. And how do I talk with my employer about making that happen? Right? So where are the opportunities within your current work environment that can help you transition to retirement? Do we need to look externally? And what would those external opportunities look like? Where would they be? What kind of flexibility do we need from them? When I think about consulting and contracting, my father-in-law spent 30 years in a electrical engineering role with a pharmaceutical company. And when he retired from that job, he formed a consulting company and continued to do professional electrical engineering work. Ultimately, within 3 to 5 years, he was able to get it so that he either had other people doing the work that he paid, or he only needed to address the clients and the customers a couple of 3 days a month. But he was earning 30 years ago, 100, $150,000 a year that he was taking out of the company as salary, right? So he was able to leverage his expertise and his abilities into this consulting space that was a really great retirement role for him. And he finally sold the company after about 20, 25 years, and made more money in that 1 year selling the company than he made in the entire rest of his life, is what he says. But I see a lot of my clients today doing the same thing. They're looking at what are the consultant roles or maybe the contract roles that are appropriate for them. And a lot of employers in today's environment are moving in that direction because it's cheaper. I don't have to pay you benefits if I'm paying you as a consultant. And so it's easier for me to hire you and have you do work. Plus, you're a more flexible workforce when you're a consultant. You know, I only want you on my payroll when you're bringing me value. And so today's project requires the skills that you have. Tomorrow's project doesn't. So I need to be able to get rid of you and bring someone else in who can do that work. And that's where consultants and contractors become very, very um, desirable to employers. So there's a lot of move in that direction. And as an older worker, we bring a lot of value to the table for those consulting and contract roles. We just need to make sure we're talking about it in the right way to show that value to the employers. I see probably 10% of my clients today looking for roles in the nonprofit sector. They see that as aligning with their personal values, as giving back to society, doing work that they feel has greater meaning and value than working for corporate America. And so there's a lot of folks moving in those directions. And there's opportunity there, especially if you don't need, and please, that's an important consideration, need that high paying salary that you got in corporate America. But hopefully you're at a point where in your late 50s or 60s where you're starting to downsize, you're starting to reduce your expenses, and so you can afford to take a little bit less money, than you're currently earning. Or you're taking that money and putting it into retirement funding, right? The key to this, oops, sorry. The key to this success, though, is that we need to find ways to stay relevant and to stay valued. I wrote in a recent article, a blog that I posted, that in order to get ahead in today's workforce, we must be continuously learning. The truth, though, with the advent of generative AI, is that if all we're doing is staying ahead or trying to learn the next new thing, we're already behind. Because by the time we learn what the next new thing is, it's already been surpassed by the new thing after that. Right. So trying to stay ahead is just keeping us equal with everybody else. And if you're not in a continuous learning environment, you are falling behind. And that will make it very difficult for you to get a new job or to stay employed through your later years and into retirement. So how do we do this? You know, through reskilling and upskilling is one way. And if you're unemployed, by all means, you want to make sure you take advantage of the opportunities through the One Stop Career Center to get retrained, reskilled, and they pay for it. It's the employment services side of the New Jersey Department of Labor, and you access it through your one-stop career center. So make sure to be checking with them about that opportunity. They'll pay for somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 of the cost for you to go get a new certification or a new skill. So it's worth checking out. Networking has become more critical now than ever before. And it's kind of funny because Andrew and I, before we opened the room up, we're talking about networking a little bit. And he was saying that one of the things he's doing to maintain his network is actually something that I strongly advise all of the people I talk to do. And what he's doing, essentially, when he gets up, to go to the cooler or to go to get a cup of coffee or maybe even to go to the bathroom. As he's passing people by in his office, he stops in and says hello and has a 1, 2, 3 minute quick conversation with them. Some of it's business related, but much of it is not. And that's what's building the relationship. That's the networking that's allowing him to be ready when that question comes up that he doesn't know the answer to. He's going to be able to call upon these people he knows in the office that do know the answer. So, what are you doing for networking? And I'm going to just bring out this story again. Um, Here's the number one technique I recommend to people for networking. Create a list of the 50 people that you think are the most important people in your network. Every Monday, reach out to the top 5 names on that list. So this Monday, you're going to reach out to 5 names. And basically, the message is going to be, hey, not dead yet. Hope you're not too. Let's chat. And by the end of the week, you should have had a conversation with 3 to 5 of those people. Then the next week, you take the next 5 names and you have the same thing, right? Now, you're not going to say, hey, not dead yet. Let's chat, right? But you are going to maybe say something like, I was thinking of you. It's been a while since we last spoke. I'd love to catch up. Do you have 5 minutes to share a virtual cup of coffee this week? And now you have that conversation with them through the week. And then the next 5, and then the next 5. And after 10 weeks, you've been through all 50 names. Now you start over at week 11 with the top 5 names again. Hey, it's been a month or 2.5 months since we last spoke. I thought I'd just check in again and see if anything's changed in your life. Here's what's going on with me. And you keep that relationship alive. That's critical to networking, is keeping that relationship alive. The best places to network or to find that list of people that you want to talk to is your professional associations, your industry associations are great places to get to talk to people and keep abreast of what's going on within your industry, within your profession, because that's where the people who are working are going to be found, and they're the ones who are up to date with what's going on in the field, right? So you want to be talking with those folks. Any questions on any of the things I've talked about so far? I've been going a little bit quick here today, but I'm not seeing anything in the chat or the Q&A at the moment. Okay. So some more things that you want to do to stay relevant and valued is, keep your branding materials up to date and active. This way, it reinforces with your network and the people that you're talking to that you are qualified, you are valued, you have things that you can bring to the table that are important. Um, Drink the link to the career office in the program referred to. Yes, Lisa, actually, at the last slide in the presentation, we'll have that link in it. Also, just for anyone's edification, if you wish a copy of the slides, I'm happy to share them with you all. All you need to do is request them from me directly. Right, so at the end of the presentation, I'll have my contact information on the last slide. I'll also put it in the chat before Andrew shuts the meeting down. And so you'll have it there, and then you can just reach out and get that. And he's already put my email in there. Thank you, Andrew. Uh, Part of our personal brand needs to be that we maintain a perspective as a thought leader from other people, right? We want others to see us as a thought leader in our space. So, for example, the book over my shoulder here is one way that I've become a thought leader in my industry. I've written a book. I'm an expert in my field. I'm in the process of writing or revising actually my first book, which probably doesn't even look familiar to people because it's such a small little thing, but I'm revising that to be a bigger book. So that'll come out soon. Also, my publisher has just asked me to contribute a chapter to a 10-chapter anthology that she's putting together called Elevate and Empower, all about people's successes and how they've gained their successes in their small businesses. And so, these things help project me as a thought leader in my industry. If you follow me on LinkedIn, please, I'd love for you all to do that. You can see that every week I'm putting out information related to job search in my LinkedIn posts. And then I'm interacting, engaging with the people that comment on those posts so that they see me as a thought leader and want to come back to me when they have concerns, questions, or issues with their own job search. Right? Probably one of the biggest issues that we have to overcome, though, is age discrimination. And truthfully, this goes back to the mindset that we started with. If we go into our later career with the mindset that we are old and that we are going to face age discrimination, that will be manifested and become real for us. But if we go into it with the mindset of our age is actually one of our greatest values and benefits employer, and here's why, now you're taking it in a whole different direction that will make people potentially see you very differently, right? And so we want to play up our knowledge. We want to play up our institutional knowledge. We want to play up our problem solving abilities. We want to play up all of the things that we can bring to the table that somebody younger than us cannot or does not bring. And probably the biggest one of those is that work ethic. You know, another friend of mine was just telling me on Monday she's having problems being able to take time off this summer from her job because all of the younger employees that they've hired think don't think twice about just taking a day off whenever they want. Whether or not they have the available time off, they don't care. I don't feel like coming to work today, so I'm not going to come to work. Well, guess who's stuck there doing the work? The 55-year-old employee who knows and understands the value of work ethic and stays there to get the job done and keep the company running. So um, you want to think about talking that up as an asset and a value that you bring to your employer. Questions on any of this stuff? So let's move a little bit from that last kind of job or career now more into retirement itself. And, we hear this term active retirement a lot, but what does that really mean? So, in its most theoretical perspective, it's about doing what you love. I like that, but on your own terms. That's the important piece about an active retirement. I'm doing what I love. That's the active part, but I'm doing it on my own terms. That's the retirement part, right? So it could be, just as it says here, finding those hobbies that you enjoy or doing more learning, traveling a lot, whatever it is that brings you joy. We need to know what that is, plan for it, and then be prepared to start doing it in our retirement. We need to look at how can we keep a purpose to our life, stay engaged with the world, and keep our health and well-being strong. And it's through that purpose and engagement that our health and well-being are maintained, right? So how are you creating social connections? It's interesting. I saw um, my mother-in-law who, when she retired, spent the first year of her life sitting at home doing nothing. We finally convinced her to start going to her town senior center. And it was like she dropped 7 or 8 years off of her life. She became so much more energetic. She became so much more active. She enlarged her circle of friends. And that kept her going many, many more years. Versus another friend of mine whose parents did the snowbirding thing, which works well for a lot of people. But in this case, this woman, gardening was one of her great loves. But because she was transitioning from Florida to New Jersey in the springtime, She wasn't in Florida at a time when it was good for planting and getting involved in the garden clubs down there when they had activities to do. But by the time she got home from Florida in the spring, her garden club at her New Jersey home had already done all of their planning and much of their planting. So she couldn't be involved in that. She had a regular schedule where she was a part of a mahjong team and group when she prior to her snowbirding. But once they started going to Florida, the mahjong group needed a permanent replacement for her for the months that she was gone. When she came back, she was now relegated to being a fill-in. What ended up happening was she lost all of her social connections, both in Florida and in New Jersey, because the ways that she would engage with them were not available to her in a way that was meaningful and valuable. Right? So, what are you going to do in your retirement to have a purpose and stay engaged? And for some of us, that means I'm going to be involved in my grandchildren's lives. And if that's an option and it is fulfilling enough and fills enough of your time, congratulations. That's really, really great. But that's not what some of us want to do either. So we need to look at all these different options for how do we find ways to be purposeful, engaged, and maintain our well-being in retirement. Thoughts on this slide? Some of us, whether we need to or want to, may still need to earn money in retirement. And there's a lot of ways we can go about doing that. I talked already about the consulting. Freelancing could be another part of that. For example, there's things like Fiverr.com or Upworks.com. So if you're, let's say, a graphic artist or maybe a really great copy editor, you could put yourself out on those sites as an expert, and people will hire you for very short-term projects at a price that you set. Someone else that's a client of mine is on, oh crap, I think it's called rabbit.com. I have to get the right name of the website. But in essence, it's a website for people to hire someone to do odd jobs, whatever the odd job might be. And she's listed out on that site what are the things she's willing to do. Your food shopping, drive you to a doctor's appointment, hang a picture, put together some IKEA furniture, things like that. She's just listed out what the things are she's willing to do and how much she charges for that activity. And people are calling her, reaching out to her through the website, three, four, 5 times a week. And that's what she goes and does. It's how she's helping to fill her retirement time. Right? You could, Joe, go be a Walmart greeter, right? Or some other type of, part-time work. Um, could be in your field, could be something new or different. TaskRabbit. Thank you, Linda. That is exactly the website that she's working with, TaskRabbit. Um, but you could do part-time work in your field or otherwise. That could keep you involved and engaged, right? I know a gentleman who recently moved to Virginia. Gary and his wife moved from New Jersey to Virginia. They wanted to be in a state that was cheaper to live, got longer warm weather seasons, but still had a winter, and where they could live on a lake so that they could do more sailing. He worked out with his employer a planned reduction in his work. So he said, look, I want to retire in 3 years. Over the course of those next 3 years, here's what I'd like to see us do. And so he worked for 6 months full time. And during that 6 months, they started to look at what tasks of his could be reassigned to other people. And then at the end of that first 6 months, they reduced his hours to 3/4 time. So he was still there. He was able to transmit the corporate knowledge that he had, right? And start to train those people on those tasks that he was no longer going to be doing. But the stuff that he was really the expert on that nobody else could do, he continued doing. After 6 or 8 months of that, he reduced his time to 50%. Now, at this point, along with the commensurate reduction in salary, they were able to start recruiting someone younger, less expensive to replace him. They were able to offload a little bit more of his work, and he continued doing the things that nobody else could do. At the end of about 6 months, they had hired somebody. He now reduced his time to 25% or one quarter time, so 10 hours a week. During that time, he spent that training this new hire to replace him, working with him to do those tasks that nobody else knew how to do, getting them up to speed so that after that 6 months, he could fully retire and leave the company. What a great way to transition from full-time work of 30, 35 years at a company to retirement. And as he reduced his time of employment, he was able to start picking up on some of his hobbies and other activities and do more of that sailing and other things that he wanted to do so that the transition to retirement, full retirement, was easy because he's now already filled his life with other things. Finding ways to be a teacher or a trainer, whether it's volunteering at your local library to do a course, or maybe teaching at your local community college, um, or other places, you know, it's great to be able to transfer your knowledge through education, and being a teacher or a trainer is a wonderful option for that. I participated in a conference for the cybersecurity industry in early June. And one of the presenters in the career track that I was working with did a 1 hour presentation that included 31 different ways that you could make money from home, all as side gigs. One of them, for example, was publishing a book, right? And that gets to passive income as well, because my book is generating $100 to $200 a month in income. And I'm done with it. I don't do anything for that book anymore. It just sits on Amazon, and every month enough people buy it that I'm earning, a couple $100 a month from it. That's great, right? So maybe one of your side hustles is to write a book. Maybe you become, because you're an expert in your industry, a keynote speaker that gets paid to go to different events and speak on topics related to the work you've done. Right? There are a whole bunch of different ways. One of my uncles loved working with his hands and creating things out of wood. So he, every day, would spend 2 or 3 hours in his workshop making toys, making other wood products, bird houses and whatever. And then once a month, he and my aunt would go to a craft fair and sell those things. And that was just the way he was filling his time in retirement, but it also brought in a few bucks. Today, you don't even have to go to those craft fairs. You just put the products up on Etsy and people will buy them. And you can make almost anything, and there will be somebody out there to buy them. Right? So think about, what are some of the things you enjoy doing? Maybe you love to knit or crochet, and you can make, 20 hats a week and then put them up on Etsy to sell. So finding some side hustles could be a great way to involve your hobbies or your pastimes while also earning some income. And again, the passive income. Oh, and investments. I know someone who retired from United Parcel Service as a manager, and in her retirement, she did not want to trust the company to manage her funds. So she took all of her stock out of the company. And at that point, after 30 years with United Parcel Service in 2015. She was a millionaire with UPS stock, sold all the UPS stock and started investing it herself, spent a couple of months learning how to invest, and then became a little bit of a day trader. Ultimately, she funded her entire retirement and grew her investment by 15% above the standard investment increases, from a typical investment fund through her own investing, right? It's a great way for her to create passive income. So these are just a few examples of different ways people are finding ways to make money while they're retired and having fun doing it. Any thoughts, questions here? All right, so for who was it? Lisa. Here's the slide that you want, Lisa. All right. Um, And where is the website specifically? Here, nj.gov, down the bottom of the left side. nj.gov, career services for mature workers. Um, and I know Andrew put a related site that is directly to the One Stop Career Centers in the chat, but either of those will get you to the One Stop Career Centers for options to work. But these are 7 different resources that are currently available nationwide and in New Jersey that specifically focus on ways to help the older or the mature worker. Um, so look at them. And let me tell you, of all of these, the one that I'm most familiar with is AARP. They've got an amazing array of resources available to people who are over 50 and want to continue working and can help you with that. So if you're not a member of AARP, you probably want to become one just to get access to this stuff. But these others are all great. Retirementjobs.com, I've done a little bit work with them, and they really focus on employers that want to hire people who are retired. Right? So they're not looking for someone to be full-time permanent. They're looking for people who maybe want to be permanent but only part-time, or maybe only want to do, small short-term jobs. So these are a list of a lot of really, really great resources that you can access for working into retirement. So here's my contact information. Feel free, please, to follow me on LinkedIn, reach out to me at my website, or through my email. If you'd like to schedule a chance to chat, you can go to Calendly and immediately find a time that works best for you, and we can set up an opportunity to chat right then and there. So, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to speak with so many of you. I look forward to hearing from you and helping you in any way that I can. I'll leave that up for just another minute or so you can get a screenshot of it or write it down. And then again, we'll get it into the chat momentarily. Andrew, thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. If anybody does have questions, please feel free to send them to us using the Q&A or the chat buttons, and we'll be happy to address it. Can we start off with what have you found is the most difficult part of that transition from active employment to retirement?
For most people, it's just simply the fact that they don't have a plan. Really, that's the most difficult part. Figuring out what is my plan, what am I going to do, and how am I going to make it happen. So that's what I would work towards, is coming up with that plan. What else, anybody? Can you repeat what a mature person can offer in the workplace again? Yeah. So there's a lot of things that mature people can offer to the workplace. And It's your, here we go, your all of the corporate knowledge that you bring is one valuable asset that you have, right? You know and understand things that nobody else will ever understand because they've not been there and done that yet, right? You have a lot of problem solving skills that a younger employee probably would not have. And so, you know, showcasing those problem solving skills would be important. Um, and the biggest thing today, truthfully, is your work ethic. Because you can look back and say to your employer, look at what I've done. I've worked the last 30 years and never taken a day off that I wasn't earned or deserved. In the last 5 years, I've only taken 3 sick days in 5 years. So I know what it means to show up to work every day, to be here on time, to work through my entire schedule, and to leave probably later than I'm scheduled because I want to finish the project I've started before I walk out the door, versus many of the younger employees who tend not to recognize that. Now, some might say, well, that's being stupidly loyal to a company that's not loyal to you. And the younger workforce will often say, I'm only going to be as loyal to you as you are to me. Therefore, since you don't really care about me as an employee, I'm not going to care about this job. And that's why they often are not as strong in their work ethic as you and I. But if you can show that work ethic, that goes a long, long way. Can I wait to retire? But okay. Uh, Other ways to network. Okay, so Linda, some other ways to network. Um, Probably 45, 50% of my clients today are telling me that the number one best place for them to network is with their alumni association. Rekindling those connections with the folks that you knew from high school and college, and just catching up with them. People are so excited for the nostalgia of, oh my God, remember when, that they want to talk to you. And once you've reconnected and you've built that rapport back, it becomes easier then to start talking about your current job, your current needs and wants, their job, their needs and wants, and how you can help each other to be better in life. So that's one of the best ways. The second best way, as I mentioned earlier, is absolutely participating in events sponsored by your industry association, by your professional association, and also the vendors that you work with. Because those vendors, oftentimes when they have new products, are going to do free demonstrations of those products. And so if you participate in those free demonstrations, not only are you learning about what's going on in your industry and staying current with it, but you're also getting to meet and network with so many other people. Now, I'll just give you one other thought on networking. Networking is simply about building a relationship. So when you're sitting on the airplane, instead of being focused on your own book, say hello to the person sitting next to you and strike up a conversation. One of my best friends in the world today was someone that was sitting next to me in first class at that particular time. I happened to be able to get into a first class ticket on the airplane. And that was 30 years ago, right? One of my greatest current friendships is with someone who 15 years ago, when he was 16 years old and the cashier at ShopRite, I happened to go to his line to check out for my groceries and said, hey, it's nice to meet you, John, looking at his name tag. Tell me what's going on in your life. And next thing you know, we're striking up a conversation. Well, he was the first cashier in 5 years at that store that was willing to have a conversation with me. So, next week when I went food shopping, I went back to his line just because it was fun to check out with him and have a conversation. A year later, he's asking me to help him write the essays to his colleges. 3 years after that, as he's getting ready to graduate from college, he's asking me to help him write the essays and fill out the application to the Peace Corps. 2 years after that, I helped him get his first job at JP Morgan. And to this day, not only do we see each other socially and have a lot of fun together with all kinds of different things, but I still am mentoring him in his career as well. Interestingly, he's mentoring me in how to be a better digital user. And so those mentoring relationships can go both ways. I'm giving value to him as the older, wiser one, but he's giving value to me and teaching me how to use technology. It's very symbiotic in a great way. So hopefully that's some helpful to you. Um, uh, Jennifer, a SAM member for years, don't have the work experience, trying to find last career before retirement. What if you've been and don't have the work? Oh, stay-at-home mom. Gotcha. Okay. Um, so a stay-at-home mom, Jennifer, is going to have some very specific, or anybody who's been out of the workforce for a few years is going to have some very specific issues that they need to overcome. And the number one is just go get any job, anywhere, doing anything to show proof to people that you can be an employee, you can take orders from somebody, and you can show up to a job every day. Beyond that, though, let's look at the volunteer work that you've done, if any. Look at the skills you've perfected and mastered as a stay-at-home mom running that household. And how can we play those up to be the skills you bring to that career that you're looking for now? Okay. Um, Marissa, how did I get my book published? Um, so this guy I self-published, which means I went through Kindle Publishing, KPD, I think it is, or KDP on Amazon, and they give you all the instructions and tell you exactly how to get the book up online all by yourself. You don't have to talk to anybody else. There's limitations to a self-published book. This book, I went through a small boutique publishing house that happens to be based in British Columbia, Canada, and for $3,000-4,000, she owned that company, helped me with creating better cover art, gave me much better editing services, really made it look, feel, and be professional. Right? And then she also teaches ways to promote your book so that you get that royalty residual income. And so she's done a great deal to help me with publishing. Okay. Lee, introverted person. When it comes to networking, and that's what you're going to still have to do, what you want to do is ask a lot of questions. Look, people like to talk about themselves. And so if you're the shy person, come up with, and I can help you develop that, reach out to me and let me know, and we can talk more about it. But, you know, come up with a list of 3, 4, 5 conversation starter questions that you would ask when you meet someone new. Questions that get them to talk about themselves so you can sit there and smile and shake your head and go, uh-huh, oh, wow, yeah. And I guarantee you in 5 minutes, you'll be ready to open your mouth and start talking to them. They'll say something that triggers something in you to want to share something about yourself. But that's one of the easiest tricks to helping shy people get beyond the fear of networking. Is just ask somebody a question and they'll do that. Um, that's why, like, one of the things I do every time when I meet someone new, and even after that, one of the first things I'll do, in fact, I think I did this with Andrew today. I got online and I said, "Hey, Andrew, are we having fun yet?" Right? And when I meet someone new, the first thing I say is, "Are you having fun?" Now, there's a whole story why I use that specific question, but people are taken aback by it. They don't know how to respond to it initially, right? But it gets them to open up and start to say something. And that's all I need. Once you say the first thing, now we can start to have a conversation. So that's some of the things that I do with that. Um, Email address again. Yep. So Andrew did that. Great. What else? I think we got just a couple more minutes, right, Andrew? So what, anything else, anybody that I've not addressed? This has been great. I really appreciate and love this interaction at the end here. Thank you so much for all of those wonderful questions. And I hope that you've taken some value from the things that I've been able to share with you. I want to hear your stories. So if you take advantage of any of the advice that I've given today, please reach out and share with me what you learned and how you used it, because I'd love to learn more about that. And I'm always available to people for a 10 or 15-minute conversation, never at any cost. Just want to connect with you and see how you're doing and how I can help you best. So thank you so much for your time and attention. And I hope you enjoyed lunch while we chatted. I can't wait to go eat mine now, too. Bye.
All right. Thank you so much, Paul. And thank you for everybody for attending. As I was discussed in the chat a little bit, this program is being recorded, so a link will be sent to everybody once it's available. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to Paul. He's a fantastic resource.
Thank you.
And as said in the introduction, he's a very empathetic listener and he will do wonders if you just want to chat as well. So thank you again, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Everybody be safe, be well, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thanks. Bye bye.